She's just like nice and cozy back there. But this is me time. If you see my corgi running around with a cone around her head, it's because she is having allergies to something. Anyway, you are not here for my dog drama. You are here because today we're gonna do a September wrap-up. My first official wrap-up on this channel. Tell me if you don't like this closeness. I feel very intimate with you. Okay, here we go. We are in business, my friends. We've got 12 books. We've got a mashup. We've got some middle grade. We've got some young adult, some nonfiction. So I finished book of 3 by Lloyd Alexander. This is a book about a boy named Taran. It's a series. I think it's a trilogy. And he is an assistant pig keeper and his magical pig goes missing. I rated this 2 loaves out of 5. Because it was just very Lord of the Rings derivative. I finished it for nostalgia's sake. When I was a kid, I loved this series. And so when I decided to get back into reading, I was like, let me reread some of the series I loved as a kid. And I think I didn't connect the dots until the adult me read this book, and I was like, how come this is exactly like Lord of the Rings? Instead of a hobbit, you have a 10-year-old boy. Instead of a magical ring, you have a magical pig. Instead of Sauron, you have the Corn King. Instead of the orcs, you have Cauldronborn. Pretty much the same. I didn't like how watered down it was, and I would prefer to read Lord of the Rings and not reread a derivative watered down version of it. Ooh. Next is First Test by Tamora Pierce. This is book 1 in the Protector of the Small series. This is part of her Tortalian worlds fantasy world that she created. I read the Alana series as a kid about Alana who pretends to be a boy to be a knight. And then her story in becoming this epic warrior and champion. And this is like further in the future once the king allows women to train as knights. Calendry, our protagonist in the First Test in the Protector of the Small series, she is I think 10 years old in this book, and she decides that like her brothers she wants to train to be a knight. She's a little bit big for her age, like tall, and she's very athletic. She's received prior training as part of this special court that she was in, or her family was in. I rated this 3 lows out of 5. Nothing really happened. It has like a training camp setting, and it's basically Calendry getting aroused by boys and learning to fight and adjust to this very different society than she's used to at home. And she's only 10, so of course it's going to be hard for her. And it was nice to read an author that had a good sense of setting and relationships. The next book is a buddy read that I finished with my best friend Liesel. This one was Warrior Princess of Pennyroyal Academy. We finished that in September, and that's book 3 of the trilogy by M.A. Larson. This trilogy follows the story of Cadet 11. She's called Evie in the books, and you find out about her story. She was raised by dragons. Pennyroyal Academy is a magical school where girls are trained as princesses to fight witches, and boys are trained as knights to fight dragons. Very Harry Potter inspired, I would say. It laces in like familiar fairy tales of Cinderella, Rumpelstiltskin, Rapunzel, Hansel and Gretel. It kind of interlaces aspects of those stories, like paying them an homage in this book. The author, I think, had a fairly good premise for this story. He was really good at building up to like a climactic point, but like the falling action and the resolution was just not there. It was just like, okay, all this suspense and the twists at the end of the trilogy didn't make any sense. There was no support as to why you would make that kind of twist. It was just like a twist for a twist's sake, like, haha, gotcha moment in the book. And I was like, well, this is stupid. Like, then why did I read this? Like, what, why? The other thing that was really poor in this book was the sense of ambiance and setting. There was a lack of, I feel like my imagination had to do a lot of work, because he was either, you're in school, you're in the forest, you're in school, you're in the forest. And there wasn't really like time. For example, in Harry Potter or in Tamora Pierce books, you get a place are a sense of the passage of time throughout the school year. You get the different seasons when you're reading, and in this book, unfortunately, you just didn't. I would say, honestly, some of my favorite characters were the bad characters. Like in the third book, there are giants, and they're kind of like dumb. They're kind of like the Three Stooges, and they're really funny. The characters are written really funny about that. I was just so disappointed because it had potential, and it just, 3 books in and it just didn't deliver. The next book is a self-help book. It was an audiobook by Kevin Hart called The Decision. And this is all about basically making the decision to make your life better. The only reason why this didn't get a 5-star for me as far as self-help nonfiction goes, I don't think Kevin Hart is funny all the time. I think he's funny most of the time. And so some of the jokes I was just like, really? But overall, I really liked his message. The message that I took away from this book, I think he calls it like unmessableness. Basically like being an unbothered person, like doing the thing that you want to do despite what everyone else thinks of you. He talked about his challenges becoming, you know, a Hollywood star. You know, he's infamously short. People would be like, oh man, you're not funny, you're not good looking, you're not tall. He overcame all of that to be somebody, to be wealthy, to have a company, to have employees, to have a successful career. And so I like that. I like that he was somebody who had challenges and overcame them. I think sometimes in self-help, you have people who grew up privileged saying how wonderful it could be if you could just take these steps and do what they do. You could have what they have too. And sometimes when that comes from a privileged perspective, it feels condescending, it feels inauthentic. But coming from Kevin Hart, knowing he grew up in a poor family, single mom, he had a mom that was hard on him because she wanted him to have a better life than what she had, to see that growth, I think was really inspirational and aspirational. So I really liked this book a lot. If you're into stand-up comedy, if you like Kevin Hart as a comedian, you'll like this book a lot. It's another self-help nonfiction or spiritual book. It is 3 Questions by Miguel Ruiz. This book asks you to ponder 3 questions, which is, who am I, what is truth, and what is love, I think. Post-editing Anna will put it somewhere for you. And if you're familiar with the work of Miguel Ruiz, he is the author of The 4 Agreements, which is a book, if you're into self-help or want to get into self-help, is the book to read. It makes you question everything in society and makes you see that there's a lot of pressure on us as a young child to conform into the society, and our brains are wired for conformity because we need connection and belonging to be happy and to be safe. My favorite section of this book is where Miguel Ruiz talks about how the relationship you have with your body, and how your body is your buddy. How your body is the love of your life. You should know it intimately. You should know how to treat it, how to feed it, how to nurture it, and love it no matter what condition that it's in, because it is the thing that is carrying the essence of your being. And so you should learn to appreciate and love yourself and your body just as they are. Next book I read in September was another like nonfiction self-help book. It's Magic When You Need It by Judika. I've been really interested in the occult and Wicca and witchcraft. I'm just kind of learning about it. I don't consider myself a practitioner at all. This is a good reference if you're someone who is into the occult or into Wicca and paganism, that you probably enjoy this reference book so that you could learn some of the spells that she thinks are very useful and in her experience are effective. For me, I just rated it 3 stars because it's not exactly what I was looking for. I also read book 1 of the Confectioner's Guild, Confectioner's Chronicles. This one's called The Confectioner's Guild by Luana. I really liked this book overall. I think I eventually rated this 3 stars. Here's why. For me as a reader, I really have a heavy importance on ambiance and setting and interpersonal relationships. Like a poor book with those things in it can really still be enjoyable for me. Without that, I just feel so unsatisfied in my read. And so in this book, our main character is Ren, and she discovers very early in the book, I'll try to avoid spoilers. She finds out very early in the book that she can imbue her confections, like cupcakes and candies and cakes. She can put her magic in them. So she gets whisked away right in the beginning of the book to talk to the head of the guild and about her special powers, and then all of a sudden someone is murdered. So people in high power blame her for this specific murder, and so the entire book you're trying to figure out, okay, who done it? You get to know this world of guilds and the kingdom, the politics around it, and all of that. Super interesting. I really love the murder mystery aspect of it. Loved it so much. However, this book again kind of lacked setting, lacked building ambiance, and so I felt like in the book I had to like build a lot of it myself in my imagination, which is fine. Interpersonal relationships weren't there. The only relationship I did like was between Ren and her friend Olivia. I thought that was a really sweet relationship, but outside of that, nope. And I think maybe because we have a protagonist who has had a rough childhood, and so because she is distant from others, you feel distant from her and the people around her. Maybe that's why. I mean, it's still good enough that I plan on reading the rest of the series to find out what happens, but I just didn't, I don't know. Next is Miss Mabel's School for Girls by Katie Cross. This is book 1 in the Network series, and I like this one. So in this book, we have Bianca, who we find out is cursed. And so she is trying to find the woman that cursed her and her family. And so she goes to the magical school. It's a magical all-girls witches school. And she competes in this competition. She gets the opportunity to become the headmistress's assistant. The story from there just unfolds. There was like a creepy gothic feel to the book, and you have a villain who you're not sure if you like her or not. You're like, who are you? What's your end game? And she's very mysterious. I loved Bianca as our main protagonist because she was powerful for a reason. I sometimes get tired of the trope of like they're born chosen. In this story, Bianca's not chosen, she is trained. It's just kind of heartbreaking how her intentions are keep getting thwarted by Miss Mabel, our like kind of main antagonist in the book. And the twist at the end, oh my gosh, I was like, okay, like I need to read the next book in the series. So I immediately reserved it at the library. Okay, we have The Art of Showing Up. This is a self-help book by HeatherAsh Amara. And this book basically, like the other self-help books, this kind of follows the same train as Don Miguel Ruiz. It basically is just basically like, you need to love yourself more, and there's exercises and stuff like that. I wish I had it in a workbook format instead of just audio. There are meditations at the end of each chapter or section that you can participate with them, and I ended up just not finishing it. I kind of lost interest because it was very repetitive from the 3 questions that I had just read. So then I read or listened to Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I first tried it as a book. It kind of didn't work out. I kind of was just kind of bored, but then I listened to the audiobook and it was great. This was a book that was like far better as an audiobook because the narrator was so good. This book was so fascinating. I loved all the 80s culture references. I loved the different characters, their interpersonal relationships. I loved it. It was so good, and the politics. And I think part of me liked it so much because it feels like that's the direction our society is going. Let me explain the premise of the book. So we have Wade Watts, who is a very, very poor boy, and he has access to the Oasis, which is basically the Facebook in this futuristic world, but it's like virtual reality. You can actually like be there and be your avatar in there. You have like a little headset and gloves, or some people have like a full body suit, you know, to enhance their experience. In this world, you can go to school, you can work through the Oasis. And so we have Wade Watts, who's a poor kid, and even in the Oasis, he can't really go anywhere because it takes money to travel around. And so he usually like stays like I think in like his like school planet, and he has access to all of this like free Wikipedia information on the creator of the Oasis, James Holiday, and he wants to learn more about him because James Holiday, before he died, hid this Easter egg within the Oasis and basically made a game of finding it, and whoever found it would inherit his fortunes. Okay, we're talking like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, who's in charge of Google, I don't know, combined, like that would be your wealth if you could find this Easter egg in the game. And then the antics ensue and people go years trying to find it. So you learn at the very, very beginning that Wade finds the egg. That's not a spoiler. You learn that at the very, very beginning. And I think that that kind of, all of the suspenseful moments in the book were kind of ruined because you know it ahead of time. And like the book is a spoiler, like that in the first chapter, you know that. It's just kind of disappointing because then when he gets into tight spots in the book, you already know he's gonna get out of it. So you're not as stressed. There's one point in the book where I was like, what did he do? How is he gonna get out of this? How's he gonna get out? Like, you know he's gonna get out, so you're not too worried, but like you're still like, dude, you're a kid, how are you gonna figure this out? Anyway, that was my biggest hiccup on the book, but I did give this 4 out of 5 lips. Oh my god, this will be my last book. Yes. Is Before Happiness by Shawn Achor. So Shawn Achor is like I think he's a behavioral researcher, and he focuses on the mysteries or studying human behavior around happiness and the power of a positive mind. So this book, I didn't finish it because it was really repetitive. You'll find that in a lot of self-help books, it follows the say what you're gonna say, explain it, and then say it again and again and again and again. And I get it. You need to have a positive mindset in order to achieve great things, in order to feel happiness in your life. You have to have a positive mindset, and that it's true. Do I need a 200, 300 page book to tell me that? I honestly love wrap-up videos because the person actually read the book. It's not just like, look at the stuff I plan on reading. It's like, look at what I accomplished, okay? Like, look at the time and hard work and effort I put into this. I really find value in wrap-ups. I love watching wrap-ups. So I hope that you guys loved watching this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss an upload. If you want to follow my everyday life, make sure to find me on Instagram. So I try to post aesthetic content on there. I do my best, I think. That is it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed this wrap up, and I'll see you all in the next video. Toodles. Toodles.